guys let me know that you can see those slides and a couple tabs up here. We're going to be swapping back and forth between some stuff. Let me actually pull up. Where did the chat go? There we go. Awesome. Thank you guys. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm going to put the chat here so that hopefully I can see. I'm not going to be able to keep up with chat. Tatiana is going to help me with that a little bit, but if you guys have questions, drop them in the chat. Also, as we go along, if something is clicking with you, if you're loving something, make sure that you let me know that in the chat. I love that feedback as we go along, but we're going to try to cover questions at the end just so that you know. Now, let's see here. Sorry, I'm getting pop-ups and okay. So we're going to be talking about eliminating launch overwhelm with the NNL Planning Method. If you are in launch mode right now, can you type in launch in the chat? And if you're not in launch mode right now, you've already launched, but maybe you are still in overwhelm mode, go ahead and type overwhelm in the chat. What we're talking about today is not specific to launch, but it can be used in a launch. It can be used at any other stage of business as well. I still use this and I have been in business for 20 something years. You are going to love this method. So as Tatiana mentioned, let me go back to my slides here. My name is Tara Wagner. I've been a small business owner myself since 2000. I help other small business owners upgrade themselves and their businesses for more time freedom and zero burnout. Not with some new marketing strategy, but just with a new approach to business and to the way you operate, both internally and externally. I work with small business owners across countless industries from around the world on both mindset and business strategy and operations. And I have learned that no matter who we are or what we do in our business, we are all struggling with virtually the same underlying problems and needing essentially the same skills and tools. So in my programs, we talk about super practical stuff like systems and processes, how to run your business in fewer hours, plus how to improve skills around things like creating offers that convert, marketing, sales, so that those things don't burn us out, so that we don't have burnout baked into our business plan, which is so common. We talk about hiring and managing a team in a way that doesn't make you want to scratch your eyeballs out. And we go really deep into how do you actually change your mindset or develop a CEO mindset or manage the stress or the emotions or the worries or the fears that come with juggling all the hats that we're supposed to be wearing. But do you want to know the number one topic, the thing that comes up most, whether people have been in business for 5 days or 5 years? It is how to overcome the overwhelm, how to prioritize the right things when everything seems important. And how do we do all this working only part-time hours without giving up full-time profit goals, without burning ourselves out? This was me in my first business. I burned out so badly after 8 years that I tore up my body. I created health conditions that I'm still recovering from today. And this is why I do what I do, because I want to help other small business owners prevent this same mistake or these same issues. And that first skill that we get to learn, probably the most important skill that we master as business owners, and something that influences every other skill that we develop as entrepreneurs, is what we're going to go through today. I'm not just going to show this to you. I'm actually going to walk you through it. So you're going to get some hands-on experience with it. You're going to be able to better implement this yourself going forward. So I'm going to have some tools I'm going to have you download in a minute that are going to allow you to actually go through this and practice this with me. Okay. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about the real reason we're all so overwhelmed and what exactly that most important skill is that I just alluded to, what the NNL planning method is, and how it eliminates not just overwhelm and chaos, but also the feeling of not being sure what to do to move things forward in your business, all for the goal of getting more done in the next 12 months than you might otherwise do in 3 years. We're going to go through the 6 steps to implement this method starting in this class. And we're going to have time for Q&A. You can, like I said, you can ask these throughout our time together. We'll probably go through most of them at the end. I'm not going to be paying too close attention to the chat, only because if I do, I'm going to get very distracted and lose my place in all of this. So let me, I actually just did lose my place in all of this. Let me go down here. Okay, awesome. By the end of this presentation, whoops, I lost my thing. There we go. By the end of this presentation, you're going to have a clear plan of action that eliminates your overwhelm. It provides perfect clarity on your exact next steps week by week. Plus, you're going to know what to do for 15 minutes once a week to stay on track with that clarity and ensure you're prioritizing the right things at the right time for the right results. And I know this sounds like a big promise, but I've been teaching this for so long, and I promise you're going to love this. So let's first talk about the real reason we're all so overwhelmed. And it's not the to-do list. Yes, one of the biggest challenges that small business owners face is that we are wearing more hats than the standard CEO with massive corporate teams working with them, right? Because we are the marketing department, we're the sales department, the customer service team, the project manager, the product designer, the HR department. We do not have teams of dozens or hundreds of people taking care of all those details. Whether you're launching or years down the road, we all have all of the details on our brain at all times. But our brains are running on some pretty ancient technology. I heard somebody say not too long ago, and I don't know the source of this, by the way, but it makes sense, that we process more data, new data in one day than humans used to process in a lifetime just a couple hundred years ago, right? That is the average human. We process more in one day than we used to in a lifetime. But small business owners at any stage of business are processing 10 times as much as the normal person, because not only do we have TV and social media and magazines and books and the news, but we're constantly needing to learn and adapt and pivot. We know the names and details of not just friends and family, but countless clients, colleagues, other professionals, our competition. While other people can shut their brains off after a day of work, we don't mentally shut our work off, right? It's our babies. Comment with baby if you know what I'm talking about. We are always thinking about our business. We are waking up in the middle of the night thinking and planning our business. So of course we're overwhelmed. This is our brain. We have thousands of tabs open, but those tabs are not actually the reason we're overwhelmed, all right? Overwhelm is the symptom of the actual problem, not the problem itself. And focusing on our symptoms doesn't prevent more symptoms, right? We all know that in health. If you focus on the symptoms and not the root cause, it doesn't solve the problem. Only focusing on the actual problem and implementing new strategies to that problem can eliminate the symptom, the overwhelm. And the actual problem, the real reason we're overwhelmed is because we don't know what to do with these tabs. We leave them all open because they all seem important, instead of closing the ones that we don't need to think about right now, bookmarking the ones that we need to come back to soon, maybe even delegating some tabs to other people. That super important skill that I mentioned earlier, it is not marketing or sales or managing people or making clients happen. All of those things matter. But the skill that allows us to master everything else in our business is the organization and prioritization of thoughts, ideas, projects, and tasks. Organization and prioritization, not letting thoughts, emotions, and ideas and projects run us, but learning how to run them. It is the ability to think straight, to know how to put first things first, or even know what are first things to begin with, and then to manage those things in a way that allows us to make more progress in the next year than some people make in 3 years. And that's what we're going to start doing with the NNL Planning Method, all right? So what is the NNL Planning Method? Have you guys heard of this before? Comment with NNL if it sounds familiar. NNL stands for now, next, later. And the NNL is a method of organizing tasks, projects, and problems that you're facing, or anything else taking up bandwidth in your brain so that you can prioritize the right things. What we call needle movers, not just busy work. That's the right things, right? The things that move the needle, move us towards that goal. This is the ability to think straight again, especially when it feels like you are juggling too many hats and clicking around between too many tabs. This is a practical, step-by-step method that I'm going to walk you through that allows you to clearly see where to focus in your specific business, as well as teaches you how to focus and how to eliminate distractions without losing important information or ideas or progress. Prioritization is the most important skill to master for progress, real progress. If you can't prioritize because it all looks important, you can't get anything done, right? Comment with done if you felt that before. It's all important. How do I get it all done? Like, what comes first? How do I manage all of this? I want you to know that you can use this method with or without a team. It's going to take about 5 minutes to understand, but we're going to go through it a little bit slower than that because I want you to go through it step by step. And it takes about 15 minutes a week to stay on track with it. Maybe 30 if you want to, sometimes an hour if you really want to take your time, but literally it generally takes about 15 minutes. So to learn what this looks like, we're going to go through the 6 steps together. I want to challenge you to implement these steps as we go along, if you're able to. How many of you are like at your home computer right now and you're actually able to do this with us? Comment with yes if you are. Comment with no if you're not. We have an option for you. Don't worry about that. I do want you to remember, though, that the more you get into something, the more you get out of it, right? So before you begin, if you haven't yet grabbed the worksheet and the workbook that goes with the presentation, I'm going to drop a link in the chat, maybe, where you can grab that. You will also get this by email after the sessions today. So if you can't grab it now, I want you to go through this, follow along. Maybe you'll follow along on paper, but look for that email later. Come back to this recording later so that you can go through this again, okay? If you have the ability to go through it later, you have the ability to pause as I go along, which is going to be really helpful. I don't want you to wait for later, though. I want you to do as much as you can, even if it's just scratching it out on paper, because as you get into it, as you practice it, it's going to make more sense. If you watch somebody else do it, it's going to feel a little confusing. It's going to even feel a little bit overwhelming. And we'll talk about why that is in just a second. So the first step that I want you to take is to open up your calendar right now. And I want you to schedule that 15-minute weekly check-in. Okay. We're going to go through the NNL together, but if you don't have that 15-minute check-in on your calendar, this is going to fall off your radar real fast because we all know how busy we are. I want you to, as somebody told me once, success is scheduled, right? I want you to get your success scheduled on your calendar. So pick a day and time that works best for you. I personally do this on Friday afternoons before I log off for the weekend. Some of my clients like to do it on Sunday night. Some of them like to do it on Monday morning. What's best for you? Right now, what I'm talking about is setting up a weekly recurring task. If you use something like ClickUp, Asana, Trello, whatever you might use, and a weekly recurring calendar event for a 15-minute NNL check-in. That's it. Okay. We're going to talk about what to do in that check-in in step 6. Right now, I just want this scheduled on your calendar. When it is scheduled, comment with done so that I know you're done. I want it in your calendar and I want it wherever you manage tasks. And the purpose of having it in both is so that you don't accidentally schedule something over it. I want to make sure that it's going to continue to happen. Okay. When you have this step done, I'm going to share those links again in the chat. How many of you have been able to download? So there's 2 materials that I'm going to have you download. This link has both of them. This is going to give you the workbook and a spreadsheet. I'm going to also give you the link to the spreadsheet directly. This is going to be a copy link to this spreadsheet. When you click that, it's going to open up this page right here. It'll say to make a copy. Go ahead and click on that. This will make a copy into your own Google Drive so that you're able to make edits to it. Okay. You won't be able to edit anything until you make your own copy. So go ahead and do that if you haven't already. If you can't make your copy right now, don't worry. Save the links if you can, or you will get them by email later. So it's no stress. Grab a piece of paper and you can still follow along with us. Okay. Now, step 2 is to outline our goals. So what I want to go to here, this, by the way, is that link as well. So we're going to go right here to outline your goals. This is step 2 because it's important that we outline the target we're aiming for before we start making decisions to take us in that direction. Okay. So what I want you to do is outline your goals, but not your short-term goals, meaning the projects that you want to get done. That is actually what's called objective goals. Objective goals are the things we do to reach our outcome goals. I want you to look at your outcome goals. So let's say you have some projects that need to be done. What's the goal of those projects getting done, right? Why are you doing them? So maybe your objective goal is, I want to complete my new program or offer this year. That's an objective goal. It's a project on your mind. What is the point of that goal? That's your outcome goal. So maybe the point of that goal is, I want to earn X amount per month working X hours per week. Okay. You would write that down at the bottom. If you know what your business and personal values are, write that in right here. If you know what your long-term goals and vision are. So for instance, what is the reason that you want to earn X dollars per month working X hours per week? Well, I want to be able to buy a nicer house. I want to be able to travel, right? You want to be able to write those things here. So take a moment now to jot down some thoughts on this, because we actually will use these in some of the next steps to make sure that the choices you're making are taking you closer to these goals and not further away or putting them off. Procrastinating, right? How many of you know what that is? We're really good at working on things that are actually procrastination. So if you don't know these things, that's okay. But when you do know them, as you have clarity, or if they change, they may change some of the choices that you make in the next steps. So just make it a point to revisit this on a regular basis, maybe once a month during your 15-minute check-in. Come in here and, add some extra thoughts or make some updates to it, okay? So is everybody good on this? Do you have somewhat of an idea? Mostly, I want you to have an idea of what your outcome goals are, but do you have somewhat of an idea? Comment with yes if you've got some things filled in here. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I want to actually jump into step 3 right now, okay? So if you don't have this done, make a note, come back to this later. We're going to go into step 3. Oops, that's step 2. Step 3, which is a strategic brain dump. Now, most people, when they're doing a brain dump, they just dump everything out, but we're going to do this a little bit more organized. You're going to be brain dumping into 2 main categories and then some subcategories. So I'm going to jump back over to the spreadsheet, back over to the strategic brain dump. The first category that we're going to be focusing on is projects, problems, and one-off tasks, which are just small projects. These could be bigger things like designing an offer. It could be problems that you're facing, like, getting your website figured out or getting some issues fixed on your website. It could even be something like finding a new daycare for the kids. One-off tasks, some examples of that might be getting your LLC set up, stuff like that, right? Projects have subcategories. These are what I call your 6 top hats. We all feel like we're wearing a lot of hats, right? We're juggling the hats we're supposed to be wearing. Comment with hats if you know what I'm talking about here. What I teach clients is that you actually only have 6 hats in total in your business that you're going to strategically take on and off, depending on 2 things, your phase of business and your schedule, okay? So your offers right here, you'll see some notes on this as well. Your offers is the top hat you put on when you are designing or redesigning anything to do with what you sell. So this might be branding, it might be pricing. This could be building out your initial business plan. What offers projects are on your mind right now? I want you to start dropping some right here. If you're doing this on a piece of paper, just make a little category for yourself, and whatever offers, projects, problems, or tasks on your mind, drop them in here, okay? Next up is marketing. This is the top hat you're wearing when you're working to bring eyeballs to your offers. So it comes after offers, generally speaking. This could be creating social media posts. It could be getting on podcasts. It could be running ads, which you may want to put under marketing. You may decide to put it under sales. That's okay. Doesn't really matter where you put stuff as long as it makes sense to your brain. So when you look at your business right now, what projects or ideas around marketing have been going through your mind? What's on your to-do list? What do you want to figure out? What questions do you have? I want you to drop some of those here. Sales is the top hat you're wearing when you're working on converting those eyeballs to paying clients. So if you do sales consults, if you write sales emails, if you are creating sales webinars, designing sales pages, maybe even going through a sales course to improve skills, any projects around sales go into this hat. Now, sales tasks, like proposals, sending invoices, that sort of thing. This would actually go into tasks since they're reoccurring. I want you to really be thinking about what projects, one-off tasks, one-off ideas do I have? Drop those things in here. Now, client success, this is the top hat you're wearing when you are delivering on what you've just sold, right? Or you're doing anything around making or keeping your clients happy. So this could be things like client onboarding. This could be things like, doing sessions with clients, depending on your business. Whatever that is could be right here. If you're a product-based business and you are creating things, for instance, I worked with an artist and she did custom pieces. Actually fulfilling that order would be client success. System success is what you're doing when you're doing any sort of general admin work, project management, cleanup, organization. And then CEO is the top hat you're put on when you are hiring, managing a team, running meetings, as well as goal setting, analyzing, tracking, making decisions, choosing a direction. I put all my financial stuff under my CEO hat as well. So what is on your mind? Okay, projects, problems, or one-off tasks are the first things that I want you to focus on brain dumping, whatever's on your mind that falls into these categories. If you have something and you're not sure which category it falls into, you can drop a comment. We'll try to go through those at the end to give you some ideas on that. But in general, you choose the one that makes the most sense for you because it's not really a rule. The whole point is to help you organize your thoughts, okay? So there's no right or wrong way to do this, only helpful and unhelpful. As you are doing that, as you're dropping these in, what's also going to come to mind are some reoccurring tasks, things that you do over and over, either on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, or yearly basis. So for instance, maybe you check emails daily, you see clients 3 times a week. I would put that under weekly because maybe you do it every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Well, Tuesday is once a week, Wednesday is once a week. That's the way that my brain works. Let's see, maybe you do monthly content creation for social. Maybe you got to do your taxes quarterly and yearly, right? Whatever comes to mind. I don't want you to try to come up with these. I want you to try to come up with these. And if something else comes to mind that's a recurring task, you'll just have a place to put it. All right. Now, when I do one of these, I do a fresh one about once a year. Okay. I usually take about 15 minutes to start the brain dump, just whatever's on the top of my mind, I'm just putting it in there. And then I find that I keep dropping stuff into that list over the next few days. That's normal, all right? You may even want to go back to some of your journals, your notes, your to-do lists, look through courses that you've been wanting to finish, all of those things, and give yourself time to fill this out. Right now, because of time, and I want to be mindful of our time, I want you to work with what you've got right now. Even if you've only got 5 things in here, doesn't matter. I just want you to get the practice of using this process. I'll show you how to add to it and reorganize in some upcoming steps, okay? So let's jump into step number 4, which is now to organize our projects into now, next, later, into the NNL. Now you're going to see one example of what your NNL looks like in this tab. Be sure that you be sure that you duplicate this tab before you edit it, just so that you have a clean one next time you want to go in and play around with it. I like to use my whiteboard to create mine at first. You can see this here. This is for more kinesthetic learners. If you need to get up and move your body to think like I do, this is a really good idea. Some other options would be poster board, a big piece of paper, a mirror, a wall, sticky notes, whatever works for you. The template for this is in the workbook, by the way, so that you can recreate this anywhere you want to. Now, a quick note. You might start feeling some of that overwhelm that you've been dealing with as we get into this and the next steps, all right? I want you to remember that this is like cleaning out a closet. Things are going to feel messy until we get systems in place that are going to make everything easier. So if you feel overwhelmed, I want you to remind yourself that it's natural and it's necessary in order to get things organized, okay? Now let's go back to this tab. To get things organized, we're going to look at this layout first so that you understand it. You're going to see 12 boxes here, 12 main boxes, obviously with lots of little boxes. Your later boxes are all of the projects that you just brain dumped over here. We're just going to pull them into here. You can have as many projects in your later categories as you want to, okay? As many as you want. But I'm going to show you how to whittle it down to have 3 to 5 in your next category. These are things that are coming up in your calendar. They're on the horizon, but you haven't started them yet. I'm going to show you how to whittle that down into the one project you're working on now. Your ongoing projects, you're working on a little bit at a time. They might move on and off your plate. Maybe you have a now project and you have to send it off to a designer. So it's in progress. Instead of just waiting, 1 or 2 weeks for that designer to come back, maybe you start a new now one. So these ones can kind of jockey back and forth. You can also place some of your recurring tasks here, specifically if they are time consuming, right? So like you do your monthly content creation, or you have admin hours every day. This just helps you to keep in mind how much you have on your plate so that you're not accidentally overwhelming your plate. So you have one now project that you're focusing on, but you may have some other stuff sitting on the back burner, waiting for things, waiting to move back up into this now project. Delegated is if you either have a team that you can assign projects to, or you've got family or friends that can take some stuff off your plate, okay? Don't is where you put your reminders to yourself of stuff to stop doing or stuff to avoid. These are kind of like your pep talks, right? Like, don't do this, don't forget this, that sort of thing. And then done is where you move things once you've completed them so that you can feel like a badass as you watch them pile up here. This is a little motivational hack that makes a really big difference. Now, this is very important, okay? Write this down somewhere. Throughout the week, when new projects or ideas come up, when you have shiny object syndrome, you're going to brain dump them into the appropriate later subcategory, okay? So you have a new idea for an offer, or you hear about how great this new marketing platform is. I want you to dump it into your later category or subcategory. Later is our spot for capturing ideas and shiny objects until it's time to sit down once a week during that check-in and decide what to do with them. Very rarely should anything ever get dumped into now or next, usually only if it is an urgent problem, something that really urgently needs to be fixed. Otherwise, we're trying not to make those decisions on the fly. We want to capture the project. We want to capture the idea when it comes to us by dumping it in the later category, maybe adding any notes to it, any ideas that are on our mind around it. But then we want to come back to it when we're in a planning and decision-making frame of mind during that check-in. Why do we do this? It teaches our minds to focus and commit to the decisions we've already made, to honor the decisions we've already made, and not get distracted by every shiny object or fleeting emotion or idea that comes along. Because most of us are idea generating machines, or if we're not, we're surrounded by people who give us lots of ideas. This builds self-disciplined muscles. And this is a very subtle habit, but I am telling you, it makes the world of difference in not veering off course, getting away from your goals at every whim. How many of you have half a dozen, if not more, half-finished projects, things that you got 70% of the way through, but then got distracted or had a better idea come along, right? What does that do over time? It makes us feel like over time, we start to believe, I'm not a person who can get things done. I am not a person who completes things. And we start to, and this is not true. I want to be clear with that. It's not true. But when you have that habit can make you continue to do that and can build the belief that that's who you are. So I want you to build a new habit. I want you to build the habit of, okay, I'm working on this. Oh man, this is a great idea that somebody just gave me. Let me put it here so I capture it. I'm going to come back to it later and decide, is this a now thing? Is it a next thing? Maybe it just needs to be a later thing, right? Not deciding to capture, just deciding to capture the idea and analyze it during a planning session when you're in that frame of mind is a game changer. That way, that emotion on Tuesday is not going to throw you off course, because when you sit down on Friday, when that emotion has dissipated a little bit, you can look at it with a wiser mind and make a better decision, right? How many of you are understanding that? Comment with yes if that makes sense. Now, I want to say the hardest part of this is only having one project in now, okay? We feel like if we focus on one thing at a time, we're never going to get anything done. Comment with done if you feel like that, if you're worried about that. I want to promise you, if you stay focused on one project, you are going to complete it faster and do it better and be able to move on to the next one sooner. If you try to even do 2 at once, it only slows you down, okay? I want you to imagine trying to drive 1 car at a time versus 2 cars at a time. You can go 100 miles per hour, or you can go 1 mile per hour hopping from seat to seat. It is scary to think about doing less at first, but I dare you to try this for 3 months, because you're going to get addicted to it. You're going to start to think that other people are crazy for constantly trying to take on too much, because you're going to gain so much more momentum by just removing the friction of jumping back and forth all the time. Now, I want to be clear. Sometimes you do have some stuff that's like, okay, I have to pause this. I'm not going to sit and wait a week. Yes, I'm going to work on this, but you need to be very mindful about how many things get added to these boxes. Because if you have more than 2 or 3 things going on that are jumping back and forth, if you feel like you are focusing on more than one at a time, you're going to go nuts. You're going to feel overwhelmed and your brain's going to explode because it's got all those tabs open again. So be very, very careful about what you put in here in this ongoing in progress one, okay? So what is the best way to move things from later and narrow it down into next and now to make sure that you're really focusing on the right things first? We're going to ask ourselves 5 questions to help us choose up to 5 things to move into next, okay? These questions are in the workbook, by the way, so you don't worry about having to try to take massive notes if you can't right now. I'm going to go through these questions. As I do, I want you to look at the projects you've already brain dumped and start moving some stuff over. You can rearrange it later, but again, I want you to have the practice of this, even if you need to change it later. So number 1, does anything have an impending deadline? If it is due in the next month, you're probably going to want to move it into next, right? As I was updating this, I teach this workshop all the time, but as I was updating it for Tatiana, that was a next thing when at the beginning of January, because it was due in a month, right? So that's what you want to think about. Does anything have an actual deadline? Not a deadline that you created, but one that you are actually required to you're committed to somebody else on. Which is income producing and or closest to cash. So these are usually going to be sales or marketing related projects, anything that directly, not indirectly, leads to cash flow. That's what you're looking for here. If you've got several of these, you might ask yourself, what's closest to cash? Closest to cash could be one of 2 things. It's going to bring in cash flow the soonest, or it might bring in the most cash flow over its lifetime. Move those things into next. As a general rule of thumb, write this down. Always try to prioritize marketing and sales first, whether it's a project or a task. If you're sitting down at your desk and you've got 10 things on your plate that day, which one is sales related? Do that first. Which one's marketing related? Do that next. Do everything else afterwards. This is because we tend to put off the things that pay the bills, and we also tend to put other things first, okay? So I want to make sure that those are the things that you're prioritizing. What is closest to cash? What gets you closest to that big vision and outcome goals that we outlined in step 2? So this is where you're going to reference those goals and you're going to make sure, is this bringing me closer to what I want or further away from what I want? Does this align, or is this actually in conflict with my values? Number 4, do any projects naturally come first or before what you've already moved into next? So this one is tricky, all right? Just watch it carefully. Sometimes we convince ourselves that we need a new website before we can start making sales, right? Or more sales. But since sales is the lifeblood of our business and we can actually make those without any website, doesn't even matter the business you're in, it's important that you're not procrastinating on things that look pretty and neglecting the things that pay the bills, right? So be really careful here. What has to come first, not just what do you want come first. If you're not sure, this is where mentoring comes in. Make sure you're getting support on that. And then number 5, are any of these problems losing you money? Like money is leaving your bank account right now, or potentially money is being stopped from coming into your bank account right now. If so, move those into next, okay? We are looking for 3 to 5 projects based on these questions to move over into next. If you have more than 5, that's okay. Move more over at first, but then take a couple minutes and move a couple back. I don't want more than 5 in that next category. Remember, just because you're leaving something in later doesn't mean it's going to happen way later. It could be like 2 weeks from now, especially if you're plowing through stuff because you can focus on it, right? Some things are just naturally going to come first. We can't focus on everything, so we want to narrow it down to our top 5. When you're done moving things to next, the next part of this step is to move one thing over into now using these same questions. So impending deadlines, income producing, closest to cash, what's aligning with your goals the best or the fastest, what naturally needs to come first. Sometimes what aligns with our goals doesn't actually need to come first. If somebody's a new service-based business owner, I always tell them, you need to start working with your one-to-one clients before you start creating a one-to-many offer, because you got to master that before you can move on to the next step. So keep those things in mind. What needs to come first, not just what we want to come first. And then, is anything losing you money? So at this point of the process, you could have a ton of stuff in later, totally normal. You might still be deciding what pulls into next and into now. What I'm going to do is let you come back to this step after the class. Okay. I want to make sure we have time for everything, and we are needing to roll. So for the sake of time, let's move into step number 5. All right. Step number 5 is to take that final now project that you decide on and break it down. This is essentially another brain dump of all of the steps you need to take, things you need to figure out, questions that you have, research that needs doing around this one project. You're going to put it into what I call a break it down planner. You'll find a template for this planner in your workbook as well. This can be done in a Google Doc. It could be done on a piece of paper, anywhere that makes sense for you. It can be done in ClickUp, wherever you put your tasks, doesn't really matter. What matters is that it works for you, right? Helpful versus unhelpful, not right versus wrong. You might break this down into phases of that project, projects within phases, steps or tasks within projects within phases, right? You can have as many phases or projects within the main project, or as many tasks or steps as you need. But this is where a lot of people get stuck, because they say, well, I don't know what to do for this project. I'm new to this. Like, where do I even start? If you don't know what the project really needs, or you don't know all of the steps, then the first phase is always going to be research and planning. This could be Googling, this could be searching for books, looking for courses, asking for references, talking to mentors, whatever you can figure out, or whatever you can do to figure out what you need, and then fill in the rest of the phases once you've decided your plan of action. Okay. So basically, if you don't know what to do, this is the only thing you're looking at. This is your first phase, and then you're going to come back and plan out these other ones after you've done this. Making sense so far? And I know you guys have got some questions. We'll go through those at the end. So breaking it down, I basically just want you to think of this as an outline. It's just an outline of all the thoughts and ideas around this one topic or project. And then you're going to organize those things again by those same questions as before. Specifically this time, looking at what's closest to cash, what naturally needs to come first, and are there any impending deadlines? For instance, I'm building this out and I got to get this content to my copywriter, right? So let me get that going so they can be working on that piece of it while I'm working on this other piece. Now, I'm not going to have you do this break it down planner for the sake of time. This will generally take you about 30 minutes a week. You can use this or do this during your NNL check-in. Except for really big, overwhelming projects, I want you to focus on breaking it down one piece at a time, okay? So instead of trying to break down everything the project might need, I want you to just break down what you're going to need over the next week. Yeah, not 30 weeks, guys, I promise. It really will not take that long. The first time you do it, it might take more than 30 minutes, but it really does not take that long, especially because, again, you're focusing on what does this project need now? What do I need to break down for the next week? You might have heard the quote, you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? I like to remind people that if our goal is, or our project is 1 million bites big, that's still really overwhelming. So instead, what we do is we break it into meal plans, and we break those into meals so that we can focus on one bite of one meal at a time. And that's what you're doing with the break it down planner during your check-in. You are breaking it down into a meal plan for the week. And then each of those meals is little tiny things that you're doing. And each of those bites, those are the steps within it. Hopefully that's making sense for you. Now, one bonus tip when you do this, I would encourage you to add time estimates to every task or step, and add at least a 50% cushion, if not more. This allows you to better plan the project out and make sure that you're setting realistic deadlines on it. I actually started 4Xing the amount of time I think it'll take because I am hopelessly optimistic and always think that things are going to go faster than they do. This has not only eliminated my stress, but what ends up happening is I finish things sooner, I can move on faster, which is extra motivating, and it just makes you feel unstoppable. Right now, instead of I'm a person who can't get things done, it's wow, I'm a person who moves through things really, really fast. Yes, that's kind of baked into the plan, but that's the point, right? Unrealistic deadlines are just going to make you feel like crap, and that's not the point. So, step 6, this is that check-in, okay? Once a week, maybe even less, sometimes more, but usually about once a week, you're going to sit down to look at your now, next, later, and you're going to use it to make decisions for that upcoming week. So we're going to go through some questions. They're in your workbook as well to help you to do that. So number 1, are any projects done? If anything is done, you're going to move them to done so that you've just got that growing reminder of your progress. If your now project is done, you're going to look at your next projects. And according to those questions that we asked earlier, you're going to move one over into now. For any current or new now project, are your steps broken down, mapped out for the next week, scheduled, and given extra space on your calendar? In other words, do you know exactly what needs to be done for this project next week, when you're doing it, maybe even who's doing it, and do you have more than enough time to complete it? From the now and ongoing boxes, what needs to be or can be delegated? So if you don't have a team, maybe you're looking at personal stuff, right? Who else can do what else this week around the house with the kids, in any other area of your life? And then if next is empty or getting close to empty, you've got the option to go back to those same 5 questions from before and pull in 3 to 5 new projects from later into next. So do you see how this starts to become a habit of thinking or a way of approaching your work? It looks like this. You're getting everything out of your head, essentially gathering all those open tabs in one place. Then you are even maybe organizing them from, I'm pretty sure this is less important and this is most important. So let me put the most important stuff up here. And then you are moving those things over into next, moving them into now, ongoing, delegated, and done. And that's all you're doing is looking at this for once a week, 15 minutes. What needs to be moved around? What's in my now category? And is this planned out? That's it. It is literally that simple. When you start doing this, it is going to blow your mind what a difference this makes. Do you guys see how this helps you to close some of those tabs, but without losing track of important things or ideas? It's going to help you avoid those shiny objects, but it's still going to honor the inspiration when it strikes by capturing it where it needs to go. Do you see how you're going to get more done because you can think straight and you can see it all laid out, knowing that nothing's falling between the cracks? It's all right in front of you instead of rattling around in your head, but you're also going to know what you need to focus on right here, right now. So it's not rattling around in your head anymore. Do you see how you can eliminate overwhelm with just 15 minutes of weekly planning done right? What I want to do now is I want to go through questions with you guys. If you have questions or comments that we haven't answered yet, go ahead and put them in the chat. Some common questions that I get that people often forget to ask, that I'm going to put these out there. If you have these questions, put them in the chat. Things around aligning your schedule with these projects so that you have time to do them. This could be, what do I do if things are taking me longer than expected and that's messing up my deadlines? We kind of talked about that a little bit with those cushions that we were talking about earlier. Oops, why did that do that? I don't know, whatever. Where do I put my personal goals? Do I put my personal goals in this one? Do I do something else with those? What if I run into issues I can't control? How do I get things done when I keep having external factors getting in my way, right? Those are some common things that tend to come up with this. If you have those questions, let me know. If you have other questions on the NNL, on overwhelm, specific scenarios you're facing, we'll talk through those as well. The most important takeaway that I want you to have from this presentation is that overwhelm is normal. And it is a common problem, and it does not mean you can't be successful. Every business at every stage of business is going to encounter this. It is not a problem with you. It's just the fact that you need a new skill and you need a plan of action to manage it when it comes up. That's it. And then B, learning to prioritize and focus are just skills. They're just tools that anybody can master with some time and some patience. This does not have to do with how good you are at something. It's just a matter of how good do you want to get at it. Making sense? So let's, if you guys have a question, let me go into, there is a Q&A thing that you guys can add questions to, and I think we forgot to mention that, but let me go through some of these. Britta, how do you handle having multiple businesses? Do you then have multiple nows? So Britta, what I would do with multiple businesses is I would create a work week, right? If you had 2 jobs, one job would have a schedule and the other job would have a schedule. And when you're at one job, you're doing that one. And when you're at the other one, you're doing the other one. Do the same thing in your business. What are your work hours for business number 1? What are your work hours for business number 2? Set those up and respect them and teach other people to respect them, whether that's with autoresponders, letting people know, here's when I'm available, any of that. I would create a now, next, later for each business. When you are in one business, you are working on that now, next, later. When you're in the other business, you're working on the other one. Does that make sense? Cool. It looks like it does. You said thank you. Let me know if you've got follow-up questions on that. It is tricky. I want to be really honest, Britta. I have been in situations myself running multiple businesses. It is very exhausting. I want you to make sure that you are also scheduling time every single day for self-care. I want you to treat that like a business task because you are going to be burning the candle at both ends if you don't. And the most important thing that you can do in your business is make sure that you have the energy to run them. So this is not a nice to do for you. This is not a nice to do for anybody, by the way. Self-care is a business task because people deserve you to show up as your best self, not your stressed out self. Okay. So just a little added something for you. Jacqueline, schedule alignment. I have another job and I'm working, changing the route of the business, need to keep up with the house and personal projects. How much time per week is recommended to see results in the small business? Jacqueline, what kind of business do you have? Can you let me know? And I'm going to come back to this question. Sharon, I've been on a long journey with programmers to help me facilitate my website changes, paid them and still don't have the project completed, even though I gave them deadlines. Oh, Sharon, this is the worst. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Do you have a contract? Number one, if you do have a contract, you may need to hang it over their heads and get them to take some action on it. I have been in situations like this, specifically with programmers. I don't know what it is, where I have had to cut ties, cut losses, and find somebody else. There's been times when I've been able to go back and get that deposit back. Sometimes I haven't, but definitely it's tricky. Like that's going to be in your delegated box. And that might be something that you need to pull out some big guns for. Jacqueline, tutoring business that I'm shifting into an online course. Okay, great. So you're already, Jacqueline, I don't know how long you've been in the tutoring business. I'm going to assume that you've already been taking some one-on-one clients for a little while. And you're shifting into an online course. I would say right now, I want you to split out your work week, right? So you have your job. I want you to look at what other hours can I be working on my business, putting aside some of those for actual tutoring and operating the business as it is now, and try to get yourself maybe a 4-hour chunk at least once a week to sit down and work on the online course, work on the sales and marketing behind that online course. Keep in mind that because you've got so many irons in the fire, things are going to go slower than you would probably prefer them to go. And I know that sucks, but it's just the nature of the business. Like it's just where you're at right now. It's a season. You're going to get through it. It's going to be worth it. But I would really break things up a little bit and create multiple schedules for yourself. When you do that, the majority of your tutoring business should really be ongoing tasks, right? So seeing clients, doing admin, ongoing marketing that you have. So you would probably use the majority of your now, next, later for what you're doing with that online course. Okay. Let me scroll up a little bit. If I have not answered your questions, I am not even sure. Tatiana, are you able to move questions over as we've answered them? That would be super helpful.
Yes, I just moved Jacqueline's over and it looks like Joe just put his in the Q&A.
Awesome. I see it. How should an immediate unexpected opportunity be handled, such as a proposal? Well, I can tell you how I handle it. If a proposal comes in, I think of that as admin work, right? Because it's usually coming in through an email or something like that. So I only handle those during my admin time. My team has admin time too. We check emails at particular times of the day only. So when you are, when you're going through that, let's say, you know, from 3 to 5, I do my admin work. So I have a proposal coming in. I'm assuming proposals are generally speaking, a common thing in your business. I don't know what kind of proposal you're talking about, but if something were to come in for me, it's either going to be something around clients or it's going to be around something marketing related. And so then I'm going to say, okay, do I have the bandwidth for this? What questions do I need to ask? Is this something that's going to be able to fit? And I might be either letting them know like, hey, this is great. Let me get back to you on Friday when I have a chance to sit down and make sure I can do this. Or I might be doing it right there, you know, doing a little check-in on my now next later to see, okay, do we have the bandwidth for this? What information do we need on it? So it's going to kind of stay in my admin time for a little while, or my system success time, where I'm kind of doing some of that planning out until I can then say, okay, now based on that and based on that timeline, is this a now next later thing? Does that answer your question, Joe? I'm not sure what type of proposals you're talking about, so hopefully it does. Yasmin, do you have any tips for balancing the marketing of your own business with your client workload? Yes, time blocking. And specifically, guys, I don't just time block, I do themes. So for example, Mondays, I work on particular types of work. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I do clients and more interactive type work, things like this. I don't work on Wednesdays. Mondays and Fridays are usually project days. That could go to marketing, that could go to sales, that could go to offers, that could go to something else. But I do themed days so that when it's a Monday, I know what kind of mood my brain needs to be in. And because I have done that, my brain just goes there on a Monday, regardless of how I feel. I also do theme weeks. So I see clients, or I do client workload the first 3 weeks. And then the 4th week, or if there is a 5th Tuesday or Thursday of the month, that I don't see clients on those days. We don't do our group calls in our community on those days, you know, nothing like that. I'll still do admin work. I'll still check in on social, but that's happening during my admin time. And so it allows me to balance things better. So for instance, with my marketing, we might sit down once a month during that time when I do not have clients, during that week and a half that I don't have clients. And that's when I do my marketing for the next month. Okay. So block schedules, theme schedules, and batch content or batch creation is going to make a huge difference. My biggest issue is building a sales and marketing team. Neil, hear you. So what I would do with this, I want to teach you to fish instead of give you a fish. What I would do with this is say, okay, this is a big problem. This is, you know, sales and marketing, top of the list. Let's make this a now thing. Let's break down everything that we need to do. Well, we know what we need to do. We know what our problems are, but we don't know the solution. So what do? Your first thing is going to be that research, right? Who can you reach out to? Who teaches this stuff? Who specializes in this stuff? What can you do? Is this a management thing? Is this a skills thing? Like a sales skills, marketing skills? Is it a strategy thing? So you're going to sit down and you're going to make research your number one thing to focus on to figure out what's going to solve this problem. And I would make this a now thing because sales and marketing is pretty high up there. Let's see. Did we cover all your questions? Linda, can you suggest apps for organizing? I use, love, adore, and absolutely recommend ClickUp. I am an affiliate for ClickUp because I love them. I've been using them for years and they just keep getting better and better. And the thing that I like about it is it is scalable. They have a free offer, like a free account that you can start off with. I recommend the paid one because of storage limits on the other one, but it is scalable as your team grows as well. And what I love is that some team members are going to have different ways their brains work, and we want to honor that. I love the fact that ClickUp allows me to see things in one view, like a list view. But if a team member does better with like a Trello board view, you can just switch over, they can switch over to that Trello view. So it's really flexible. It does so many different things. If you search on YouTube, my name and ClickUp, you can watch some of the videos and you can actually see me going behind the scenes on my ClickUp and get an idea of why I like it. Highly recommend that one. Absolutely. I'm planning on creating a YouTube channel. I'm planning on doing marketing. Okay. So I'm not sure what your question is here, but my assumption would be, how do I plan this out, or how do I break this down? So again, it's going to be the same thing. Do you have the research done on it? Do you need to take a course on it? Do you need to talk to a mentor on it? You know, what do you need to do to break down and create a plan? And what's that plan going to entail? What are the things you need to figure out? At this stage, you might not know what you need to figure out. And so it's going to be, okay, let me watch some YouTube videos on it. Let me look into some YouTube courses. You know, let me ask in some YouTube creator Facebook groups, things like that, so that you can start getting ideas. More than likely with things like this, what I recommend, excuse me, is to find a course, go through that course, and let that course give you the plan. And then from there, you can problem solve and tweak little things as you go along. So for instance, you're going to go through a course and you're going to find, okay, 80% of this works for me, but I'm still having this issue. What can I do then to solve that issue? That is now your next thing to plan out. Okay. As a bookkeeper with clients, how do you handle many clients with the same deadlines? Every day I wake up to a new list of fires. Oh, Crystal, I hear you. Number one, Crystal, is it time to hire a team member to take care of some of these fires for you? Number two, I have so many clients that are bookkeepers. Do you have boundaries with your clients? Do they know when they need to get things to you in order for you to reach the deadline for them? When it's crunch time, right? You know, quarterly and annual taxes, do you have systems in place that are going to allow you to streamline and resolve that faster? So I want you to really get specific, like, what are some of those fires, and what can I do to prevent them? I call this failure projection, and I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to be really fast here. I call this failure projection. I want you to project yourself into the past. What is the list of fires that you've had? Write them all out, right? I want you to project yourself in the future. What are some things that you can probably expect to see? I might get sick. My kids might get sick. My laptop might crash. Like, whatever it might be, I want you to write everything out in one list. And then next to it, I want you to write down what are at least 3, if not more, solutions to each of these. And it's basically, you're getting proactive. It's sort of like, instead of waiting until we have a flat tire to figure out how to handle it, we get a spare in our trunk, right? Instead of waiting for the kitchen fire, we make sure that we have the fire extinguisher and the fire alarms, you know, all plugged in and ready to go. We do things proactively to prevent fires. And so I want you to think of that same thing. Make a list of your fires, make a list of possible solutions, and add them to a now, next, later if you have to. Plug them in one at a time. Which one is going to be, like, what's the biggest fire, the most frequent fire? What is the most likely way that I can prevent this fire? And one at a time, you're going to chip away at this until you get this done. This works for everybody, guys. No matter what you're dealing with, it's failure projection. If you look at your goals, you want to hit something by the end of the year. What are all the things that are likely to get in the way? Project yourself into the future and pretend that it didn't happen. What probably got in your way? Project yourself into the past. What's gotten in your way in the past? How can I be proactive to either prevent those things, or what can I do if those things arise to help me handle them better? How will I handle them? This allows you to make the decision in a less stressed frame of mind, because if you're waiting for them to come up and then figuring out how to handle them, you're going to be really stressed, right? What are boundaries? Yes, Crystal, I get it. I completely understand. We talk about boundaries quite a bit in the Breakthrough Boss. We talk about, oh my gosh, conversations, how to have those tricky conversations, you know, how to word things in a way that's going to get received by clients, because it is a relationship, right? And relationships take a lot of communication and a lot of work. Okay, Tatiana, I know that I am running out of time. I don't want to take up everybody else's time. Is there anything else that I need to know or to cover or to do? Does everybody have the link that they want? Let me say this, you guys. If there's a question that I didn't get to, or you have a question in the coming weeks as you're working on this, what I want you to do is email me. Just reply to any email that I've sent you and say, hey, I was on Tatiana's training. I have a question about the now, next, later. Hit me with it. I will make sure that I answer it for you. How's that?